Well, I want to welcome everyone to Black Hole Night at SALA and Parallel Cinema. My name's Kevin Holsapple, and I'm a board member of a local nonprofit called Places and Spaces Los Alamos. You'll hear more about it in a minute. Um, First, though, I want to thank SALA and the Parallel Cinema sponsor, CM Arbor Care, for hosting us tonight. Um, Parallel Cinema is a great monthly community series, and if you don't know about it, I think you should really check it out. It happens once a month, I believe. I really applaud local business CA Arbor Care for sponsoring it. It's the kind of community participation that can really help things go in our town and make our town better. And so if you have a chance, look them up. If you need tree work, if you just want to meet nice people, I think they're here tonight. So I also encourage you to learn more about SALA and consider becoming a supporter if you aren't one already. How many of you here tonight ever heard of the Black Hole or Ed Grothus? By a show of hands. So everybody, pretty much. Well, it's probably part of why you're here. How many of you ever visited the Black Hole? So a few less. Were any of you acquainted with Ed Grothus? So, and some of the people I see that were acquainted didn't know that much about the Black Hole. Hopefully, we'll introduce you to some new and interesting info about the Black Hole and Ed tonight, and you'll leave with an understanding of what my organization's working on in terms of what we call the Black Hole Museum Initiative. The format for tonight will start with a short video presentation about the Black Hole Museum Initiative, who's doing it, why would it be, what would it be like, and we're going to make you aware, and I think I've talked to several of you already. This little bookmark has information about the Oral History Project, where we're inviting people to share their memories, share legends, share anecdotes, or just anything you want to say about the Black Hole by doing a simple web form and then calling a toll-free number and leaving in a recording. So it's a very easy process. Then we're going to have 3 films. One will be Atomic Ed by filmmaker Janire Najera, and that's about a 14-minute runtime. We'll watch a abridged part of Atomic Ed in the Black Hole by Ellen Spiro. That'll be about a 28-minute runtime. And then there's a very interesting 6-minute video that was done by a Grothus Family member addressing Ed's activism. And I don't know that many people will have ever seen that one. And I found it very interesting. Finally, once we finish the films, all together should be a little less than an hour. We'll then have time. Mike Grothus and Barbara Grothus are here to be part of a panel. I'll be on the panel as the junior member, answering any questions people may have about the museum initiative, but I'm really hoping for some cool, interesting questions for Barbara and for Mike about being a Grothus and what that was like. I also want to recognize Mike's wife is here tonight, and when you see somebody coming around with a microphone, if you have a question, that will be Heidi, Mike's wife. So that's kind of the layout for the evening. So I think let's go ahead and run the first video, please.
The Black Hole is a unique slice of our Los Alamos history and heritage that's worth preserving. The museum initiative is being undertaken by Places and Spaces Los Alamos, a 501c3 community development organization. The Black Hole was a unique store and attraction in Los Alamos for many years. People would come to the visitor center and want to know, where do I find the Black Hole? It was mentioned in many travel guides, roadside attraction guides, and travel tips. And people still come to the community wanting to learn about the black hole and ask where it is. But of course, it's been closed and demolished for many years. The story of the black hole is intertwined with that of its owner, Ed Grothus. Ed had an interesting journey through Los Alamos, and telling that story tells a lot of the story of Los Alamos from the late 40s to the early 2000s. Ed's mantra of peaceful reuse is one that resonates with many people to this day. The inspiration for the physical concept for a black hole museum comes from the Prada store near Marfa, Texas. Prada store is a unique attraction that draws tens of thousands of people to visit it each year. It's a self-service museum, which we think is important. The structure we envision would be a shipping container. It would be surplus. It would be peaceful reuse of of a shipping container that could be a self-service walk-up museum. There wouldn't be a need to staff it on a daily basis or have people find the difficulty of finding people to be there to attend to it. Many different locations have been discussed and are being discussed, but basically anywhere there is underutilized space that is publicly accessible could be a good location for this kind of activity. And we're also thinking about places where the foot traffic that this museum would generate could benefit surrounding activities. We think that a modified shipping container could serve the purpose very well. Here's a creative mock up of what a black hole museum could look like. This would be one side of it, but imagine it having displays on both sides of the structure. The Prada store in Marfa deserves attention also as a model for creative tourism development and providing a visitor attraction. Um, this unattended art installation literally sits in the middle of nowhere, and thousands of people come to it each year. They learn about it in roadside attraction articles, travel stories, and it's regularly featured in lots of travel publications. We see the museum as a place of heritage and inquiry. Um, it operates on a lot of different levels. The history and celebration of a unique place in a community, a unique business person in our community, and someone who is an activist that serves as a counterpoint and has lessons to provide for activists of the future. We are fortunate to have an offer from Janire Najera, an accomplished documentarian and photographer, to donate an exhibit that she created in conjunction with her Atomic Ed documentary project. This set of materials would form a core collection for the museum. There's a lot to work with to bring this story to life in museum displays and interactive exhibits. Since we've been working on it, any number of people have come up and talked about things that they have in their garage or things that they built from materials salvaged from the black hole. So there's quite a lot of potential from an artifact standpoint. Um, we think there's also a great opportunity for interactivity at a museum like this using things like smartphones and QR codes there's the means to really bring this to life without having to have the labor there, the people there all the time to explain things. Um, and so the self-service aspect of this, it could be a real innovative part of such a museum. We formed a working group within Places and Spaces to work on this project. And it's that working group is all volunteer, all grassroots. We're definitely looking for additional people who want to get involved, that might be involved on the working group or involved on other aspects of the project where we could use some help. Um, Really, it boils down to, is there public support for this kind of an idea? And if there is public support, we think it's a viable project. We're beginning discussions with who might be the curator or steward of such a museum. There are many capable candidates. Same thing with locations. We've had some beginning discussions about potential locations, which have been quite positive. And we think there are these underutilized places in the community where such a museum could be a real asset. Our organization, Places and Spaces, we work on obtaining grants, sourcing grants, and that's something we would do in this case once we have a viable project to really ask to receive funds for. This would be not a high ticket activity in our view, and so that helps our potential for marshaling the needed resources as well. Once we know we have a museum that could happen, that's the point in time where we would really look to bring together and secure artifacts and other materials to form the collection of the museum. We have also undertaken a oral history project, and that's to capture stories, capture reminiscences from people who remember the black hole and have something that they want to say about it. The oral histories can be anything. They can be short memories. They can be well thought out statements, and there's no need for there to be anything that's off base. Some people may not have liked the black hole, and that oral history is just as important as the people who may have been supporters or who are interested in the project. So we'd really like to encourage everybody to participate in that oral history project who has a memory to share. So thanks for listening. We'd really love to hear from the community. What do people think about this idea, and what are their ideas for how it can be the best it can possibly be? Hopefully you'll want to stay informed. So we would love for you to sign up for our mail list to be informed. And also, if you want to get personally involved in shaping the idea or in other activities to see if we can bring this to life, we'd certainly love to hear from you as well. With that, questions and answers are definitely in order, so don't hesitate to be in touch.
We can go ahead with the next films.
Hello everybody, I hope you are all good in Los Alamos. I'm very, very sorry that I cannot be there with you. I'm in Mexico randomly, so not too far. I really hope that you enjoy the screenings that the guys at SALA have prepared for you today. And I'm a strong advocate for creating a space that represents Ed Grothus and the black hole in Los Alamos. And I hope we can get the community support to be able to do that. One bomb is too many.
My father, Ed Grothus, used to buy things from the salvage yard at the laboratory and try to resell that for more money. But he always bought more things than he could sell. Eventually he owned a supermarket building, and all of his things began piling up in the supermarket, and it became known as the black hole because everything goes in and nothing comes out. My father worked here at the black hole for, I don't know, about 35 years.
Well, my dad was just pretty much a regular dad when we were growing up. I mean, outside of the fact that he built this original home in Los Alamos of adobe that nobody else had built before, and you know, he was kind of an iconoclastic person, but he was extremely bright, and he loved his family.
I think you know, as a kid, I didn't really think anything of it, right? I mean, that's just the way my life was. That's how we grew up. That's how things were. My dad worked very hard for everything that he accomplished, and nothing was given to him. And so, you know, I got, I think, that same work ethic, that hard work pays off.
My father, like a lot of the people who worked here, really enjoyed technology, and he really enjoyed beautiful and clever machinery. And my father saved everything. He was born in the Depression, and he learned you don't waste anything, you never throw anything away.
He also, because he had a certain amount of personal integrity and bravery to be the sort of the voice and conscience of Los Alamos, he developed that on his own after we were pretty much gone. You know, he was the collector that we see here, but his politics really, he was really driven after the Vietnam War.
People didn't necessarily agree with his views, his political views, his views about nuclear energy. That's okay, but you know, I think, you know, let's look back at this time 20 years from now and see where we're at about the nuclear industry, and see who was the right fortune teller.
Eventually he passed away about 3 years ago, and now my mother has also passed away, and my brother Mike and my sisters Barb and Susie and I have inherited all of this. And we don't have the personality that my father had to sustain it. And it's going to collapse altogether unless we get rid of things. So we have been working all week long trying to get rid of all of this stuff.
So exhausted this week. My brothers and I have worked so hard pulling stuff up out of the basement, trying to get, you know, people can't see it, they won't buy it. So we've brought out as much stuff as we can, hoping that we find some people who will take some of it away, because all of us feel, to a certain extent, like my father, just throwing this thing away, the nuclear waste of our, you know, the amount of money that was spent and the resources that went into these materials, to see them in a scrap heap or, you know, just turned into absolute junk, because there's many beautiful, beautiful items here.
It's my dad's collection, right? And I don't really have any sentimental attachment to anything that's here, and there's just lots and lots and lots of it. And so I'm just, you know, glad to see people excited about taking stuff away. I mean, just like, it's the same as my dad. He was always excited about, you know, what he bought, what he was going to do with it, and how They were going to sell it to somebody else.
There are some really beautiful things, and it's hard not to think about trying to figure a way to make something beautiful with these old relics that are not being made anymore. I mean, nothing is made like this, like they made them in the 50s and 60s and even the 70s. You know, now nothing looks like this anymore. It's not hand tooled, it's made out of plastic, it's cast, it's, you know, the technology has evolved, and the craftsmanship and the engineering that went into just the construction of the materials, not including the, you know, the conceptual construction, is just something you don't see.
There are all sorts of artists, aside from the people who need things for technical reasons, mechanical reasons, to buy things here. All sorts of artists come here, and my father became sort of known in the arts community as a good source for cool things.
He didn't necessarily feel like he had to sell anything. You know, it was kind of if he wanted to sell anything, and many of the artists and regular people would come in, and you know, they'd have to go through a negotiation phase with him to get things, and I certainly don't have that attachment. We got a lot of things, and we can certainly keep a lot of people happy going away with some of the great stuff we've got here.
We're really hoping that the things that remain in the black hole today can be taken and put to use rather than being thrown into a landfill. Maybe the landfills will just be the mines of the future, where our future generations will have to go looking for the material that we've thrown away because we were too wasteful. My father never liked waste. He never wanted to throw anything in the landfill. He wanted to save it and reuse it.
One of the things I've been thinking about a lot is the whole idea of what becomes a legacy. And originally I thought this particular property where the church is would be a place, but we can't run a museum. And I don't think that anybody's going to run a museum for the black hole or my father or the anti-nuclear movement in Los Alamos. It's just not going to happen. So I think we have to be practical and see if there's some other thing that we can do. So maybe the house, or maybe it'll just be the obelisk that will be left.
Things that my father designed to document the what he felt was probably the most significant event in human history so far, in that it was here at Los Alamos that scientists created the atomic bombs. They tested the first one at Trinity Site, which is a couple hundred miles south of here, and then they used two bombs at the end of World War II in Japan on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The block here at the bottom that's a cube, on each surface of it in 2 languages, he describes the story of Los Alamos. And because there's twin obelisks, you have a total of now 4 times 2, so 8 languages per cube times 2 cubes, 16 languages. And because he put English on both of the stones, there's 15 languages that explain this story. My father offered them to the city of Los Alamos. There's a Art in Public Places committee, and he got turned down. They indicated that he was not an artist and that they weren't really art. We're hoping that we'll find a place here that they will eventually be erected, and they'll be installed here in Los Alamos somewhere. And I think that over time, some of the people that have extreme feelings of dislike for some of the things that my father said will maybe soften up a little bit. And for my father, what he's looking for is, this is a monument so that if his prediction comes true and there's nuclear Armageddon, there will be a monument left standing perhaps that will tell the story for some number of years until it erodes into a pile of dust.
Just in the last year, since Occupy Wall Street started, I've been arrested twice, and those are my first 2 arrests. And so perhaps, and the second arrest I definitely did here in Los Alamos on Hiroshima Day, which is a traditional day of protest in Los Alamos against the nuclear program. And I decided I'd get arrested sort of in memory of my father.
My father and his buddies at the salvage yard were going through all this stuff at the salvage yard one day, and a board fell off a crate. Guns, all these Kalashnikov rifles were in the salvage yard. The first guy saw it, signed his name, and they got it out of there in a hurry. My dad said he thought that basically somebody in the lab had arranged to have these Kalashnikov rifles show up in the salvage yard, and they were going to buy them, but one of my dad's buddies saw it and bought it first. And he says he doesn't know what happened to them, but he thinks he sold them to some gun dealer in El Paso or something.
And this is the only fun I have with that damn thing, is like this. Hello.
How you doing?
Welcome to the black hole.
We've heard so much about it, and then we finally get here.
So that's film number 1. Really nicely done, interesting stuff. And Janire Najera again she did a complete exhibit. And interesting enough, that exhibit has been displayed in Spain and in Wales, but never in the U.S. So again, that would be she has a lot of great materials and artifacts that would form a core collection for a museum. The next film is an abridged version of 2002's Atomic Ed and the Black Hole by documentary filmmaker Spiro. It's another take on the story of Mr. Grothus and the Black Hole.
I'm Don Eduardo de Los Alamos. I'm the pastor of the First Church of High Technology. Intro ego ad altare nucleare. I go to the nuclear altar. My name is Edward Grothus, and I came to Los Alamos, New Mexico over 50 years ago. This is where the first nuclear bombs were designed and built. This is where the bombs that destroyed Hiroshima and Nagasaki were built. For 20 years, I helped make better nuclear bombs. Can you imagine a better atomic bomb? Since that time, I've operated a place called the Black Hole, where we recycle surplus and excess laboratory equipment and hardware. I refer to everything in here as nuclear waste. It's nuclear waste in a different sense than what people normally think of it.
Ed recycles almost everything he handles. He doesn't like to throw anything away.
A friend of mine called this a black hole because everything seemed to go in and nothing seemed to go out.
Well, some people think that a black hole is like a giant vacuum cleaner, cleaning up the cosmos, reabsorbing stuff into itself. Some other people think that a black hole is a window into another dimension or another universe.
The magnetic attraction is so great that not even light can get out of a black hole.
Matter tends to attract matter. It's just the nature of things.
I grew up during the Depression, and I detest waste. I came to Los Alamos over 51 years ago, and I came here because it was a job. We measured implosions. All the bombs work on an implosion principle. But it was just a job, just as it is for so many people now. If they didn't have that job, maybe they wouldn't know where to go to work. No one in the lab speaks out about what they do. People in the weapons group, they're proud of what they're doing and they feel justified in doing it. At the time I came here, the nuclear bomb was being developed. It was a great place, a large number of single people here. The average age was like 25. I had a car, and I'd go to one of the girls' dormitories and I'd say, who wants to go to El Paso or Juarez? After I was here a year and a half, a gal came who was eventually became my wife, and we had 5 children.
Whenever I have an interface with people who have spent any time in northern New Mexico in the Santa Fe area or north from there, and I introduce myself, they always say, "Is Ed Grothus your dad?" And I say, "Yes, that's my dad." This is an interesting article that was written about New Mexico in Look magazine. That's what we did. We grew up in Adamland. This picture was taken actually in our backyard. My dad had this salvage thing. It was our jungle gym, but it was actually some kind of a frame used for making an early A-bomb. You know, making playground equipment out of the atomic bomb.
My name is Frank Holmquist. I was introduced to the black hole by a friend of mine who has been living in the area for over 20 years. I've been a tinkerer and inventor most of my life. We're going to the big green tank. It's actually a thermos bottle. It has a way of collecting these weird and unusual things and big things that normally other people don't want to be bothered with. Well, all you have to do is go to any of the cash and carry sales or auctions and see how much stuff is being gotten rid of, and some of it's brand new in the box, never used, so why do they order it in the first place?
Everything that goes into the laboratory eventually comes out of the laboratory. But what that means is last year's material is out, it's obsolete. They have a sale over there one day a month.
No running, pushing, or shoving. Proceed. No running, pushing, or shoving.
The first person that gets to an item which are pre-priced, they mark their initials and sold at that price. I have so much already, I really shouldn't go. How much?
$155.90.
And even though I plan to live to be 100, I've got quite a lot of material to get rid of between in the next 24 years.
Well, Ed and I have been buddies for many, many moons. And I started working for him about 20-some years or 30 years ago. Ed at one time worked at the lab building the atomic bomb, and it killed a lot of people, and he had a change of heart, and so did a lot of other people. They said that they didn't want to have this to happen again, ever. And Ed started being a spokesperson against nuclear weapons.
And by accident, I found a number of slides at the salvage yard just recently. The salvage yard here is open one day a month now, and occasionally there'll be a big pallet of stuff, just stuff piled on there. You never know what's in it. And I bought a pallet of stuff, and this was buried down in the middle of it. Well, I've never seen most of these before. These were pictures and slides of the times when we were still doing atmospheric testing. This would have been, you know, in Inuiatak in the Pacific. This was exploded over water. Don't drink that. Oh.
Anything he wants done, well, I'll try to do. Haul stuff, or go pick up stuff, or go buy stuff, deliver stuff. Then he has stuff down in the basement. He's got it everywhere.
My dad is a collector. I think there's a lot of speculation whether behaviors are by nature or are nurtured, and the nature of the pack rat personality, and whether or not that's a genetic thing or some kind of an illness.
This is a traveling wave tube. The first Geiger counters, it's called a cutie pie. This is a solar system that cost $1 million.
These are the kind of things that connect him to the world, I guess, in a certain way. I think there's a whole idea of whether or not my dad is really running a business or just having a collection there, particularly anybody who's tried to buy anything from him and has to go through this big bargaining process.
Ed, I'll give you $6 for this helmet.
No, it's $10.
Okay.
You'll have to come back if you only got 6.
Okay.
My youngest brother died in 1976 when he was still in high school on a motorcycle. The black hole really increased in size after Ted died, and sometimes I think my dad tried to bury Ted in there, sort of burying his grief under all of that stuff.
I call this a nuclear world. You've been screwed. We spent nearly $6 trillion on the nuclear business. You can't use the product. And the nuclear power business makes waste that nobody wants. All of the nuclear business evolved right here, but then companies like this took the information that was gleaned at public expense, and then they made instrumentation. Commercially, the bomb business was a most lucrative business.
And so you end up with creating a whole division society that thrives off the waste that's generated. The people that come to the black hole are your basic computer nerds, your automotive mechanics, your machinists that have little machine shops. We get a lot of artists here who come that just for the strange pieces of metal that are left over from lab experiments and stuff that you'll find nowhere else.
You know, one of the bombs that's out here, well, there were some people here just like you, you know, and they wanted to take some pictures, so they carried the bomb and put it right out into the center of the road. Yes, this is the bomb and the bomb shell.
Male nuts. Well, I guess I don't think of it as waste. I think of it as supplies. I make books, weird little books. Limited edition chapbooks. I did a satirical catalog of non-existent tools, so this place is a bit of a nirvana oasis.
Eric is an artist. She comes here to get things. She comes here to get parts for pieces.
As an artist, I like to use materials that have a specific meaning and resonance, but I use mostly raw materials. This is like what I made the rat in, one of these, the rat piece. I did a series of these pieces in lab jars like this. This is called Nuke Bloom 3, and these are warhead trigger wires. My work is about taking the materials, the raw materials, taking it apart, still carries the resonance of what it was for, transmuting it, transforming it. The story of the Manhattan Project is really the story of human creativity. And it really kind of changed my brain around when I started reading about it, started studying it. That idea of fire and the idea of atomic fission as the ultimate fire.
Today, Los Alamos does do many good things, but their primary mission is still nuclear weapons. And Los Alamos this past fiscal year got $1.3 billion. About half of it goes to clean up the mess we made the last 53 years, and the other half goes for what they call stockpile stewardship. And under stockpile stewardship, Los Alamos is supposed to assure the military and the president that a nuclear bomb will go off at some point in the future. You know, the disaster occurs if a bomb goes off, not if it doesn't go off.
We knew the world would not be the same. Few people laughed. Few people cried. Most people were silent. I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." I suppose we all thought that one way or another.
You know, the longer this goes on, the
more outraged I am over what appears to be just an unbelievable mistake.
That was Governor Gary Johnson up in Los Alamos.
Anyone left in that town?
It is a ghost town. Everybody is out on the evacuation. And so the neighborhood now being burdened. That's what we assume is happening. Moving over into North Los Alamos. Here's some police radio reports, unconfirmed, that the fire could be heading through some neighborhoods and then sort of swerving in the direction of the Los Alamos golf course.
I did not see my house. I saw my neighbor's houses that were on fire.
Burned right up to the base of the building. I had traffic cones. It melted them right here. The trees are absolutely scorched. How I was so lucky, so terribly lucky. I was here when the fire came across that ridge.
We were spraying soapy water from 55-gallon drums on everything we could around here. And as the fire got so close that you could hear the roar of it, it was inducing its own hurricane-force winds. The cloud of smoke had descended, and we had started embellishing the church and the whole property, so that it became impossible to breathe. I had a hell of a time trying to convince Ed it was not safe to stay because of the smoke.
But I had never ever considered leaving. Never.
I saw on the news, you know, that area was houses that were getting burned, and I knew the black hole was there, and then they said, oh, there are people that wouldn't leave and wouldn't evacuate. I'm like, I know that's Ed. He stayed and helped save people's houses.
And the declaration by President Clinton that Los Alamos is a major disaster.
Well, Monica, we were talking to a resident that stayed during the fire.
I've got a truck that has two 55-gallon drums of water on the back, and I was putting out spot fires here and there for the last 3 days.
And I hadn't heard anything about him or from him for quite some time, even though I tried calling his home phone and tried calling the black hole, but there's a lot of problems with the phone lines being down. About 2 days later, I heard on the television and on the radio that Ed Grothus had been arrested.
I said, I'm coming back. They said, you're not coming back, and so I got arrested. Incidentally, I was supposed to be, oh my God, my court hearing was today at 2:30. I forgot all about it. All right. Okay. Bye-bye. I'm going down to Magistrate Court. This is on my arrest. So I have to do something now. Okay, I plead guilty.
Tell me about it.
I'm sorry about Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We celebrated it at the time. It was the end of World War II. I did abandon this place for 4 hours. In the rush of things, you know, you don't know what to take. I took my credit card machine and the cash register. I took my cans of organic plutonium. This past Christmas, I sent to the president and the vice president a can of organic plutonium, and in my cover letter I said, if you eat this stuff, you will know God and you will walk with a halo. And if you give some to Socks, Socks will walk with a halo. And lo and behold, the Secret Service showed up here.
Secret Service came up from Albuquerque and questioned Ed about sending that to the president and vice president. It's fat-free and wheat-free and dairy-free, but they didn't let them have it. They x-rayed it and put the Geiger counter on it, and then they opened it up and poured it out.
What was in there?
Corn.
It gets all goofy in the background. You get a little dizzy.
Well, if you get really close, it's perfect.
Hey James, where's that gas mask?
I feel like I'm been racked or something.
You have to put your hands on that mirror.
Okay.
What is that thing, Ed?
That's a big parabolic mirror. I don't know what it was used for in the lab.
I heard that it was used for a front surface projection system for a folded optical path for a flight simulator for either the space shuttle or some big aircraft. Is the story that I got.
I have dreams of having a real nuclear museum right here in Los Alamos. Well, that's my dream for a tower over here where my museum would be. I would like the museum to demonstrate the folly of the nuclear business. There is a museum in town here now called the Bradbury Science Museum, but it's largely a PR thing for the lab.
Welcome to the Bradbury Science Museum. Thank you. Have you ever been here before?
The Bradbury Science Museum is funded by the laboratory, like the library, like the gym.
Over here we have the weapons section. There are casings from some of the earliest weapons, Fat Man, Little Boy, some representative satellites. When you look at all the means of producing energy within the U.S., probably the safest has been nuclear power. In terms of non-weapons programs, the laboratory is kind of a unique place where a variety of people interact together, chemists, physicists, biologists.
Here, it's big science with a capital B and a capital S. It's not a small lab, but it's many resources. It's multidisciplinary research. You know, the physicist works closely with the biologist, the life scientist.
There's always things you find something really cool, and Ed will say, "Oh, well, no, I can't sell that because I have to keep that for the museum. This is a special blah blah blah, and it does this. You don't even know."
And that these objects then will tell a bigger story that he has in mind now to tell.
This is a BBT, a big blue thing. And I have mounted in here a satellite dish. And these blue bombs here at my feet, I'm going to cut the tail fins off. I'm going to lay these bombs around the edge of this like a great big flower. It'll be about 20 feet in diameter.
I think age has a license of its own in some other way maybe, and my dad certainly indulges in that license.
The first church of high technology. We say a critical mass here every Sunday. We have a bomb and worship service, and we change wine into water. What we should do is abandon the nuclear business, and we'll do things here that serve humanity. The sun is the only good nuclear reaction around. The site is ideal at 93 million miles. The power output is essentially infinite, and the power distribution is everywhere. And we have to learn to live with the output of that power supply so that man will survive on this earth. You can't divorce yourself from the society in which you live. You just can't do that. You're part of it. You don't like what things that are going on, you object. turn your camera a little bit this way. No, too far, too far. No, too far. I was just trying to get you level. This is about level. This is my retirement plan. It says here that you place the bomb in the center of the black hole, and then you light the fuse, and then you stand way back. It's the only way I'll be able to get rid of all this stuff.
So that's another take. We have one more film. It's just a short one. I think it's 5 or 6 minutes. And I'd like to ask Mike Grothus to introduce it. This one he sent to me, and I would be surprised if anyone in the room has ever seen this one before. It's I think a family production.
So my father grew up in Iowa and was the oldest of 8 children. And so I have many cousins in Iowa, and one of them had a daughter who was in high school and needed a design project for her high school class. And so she put together this video as to answer that assignment for the class. And she ended up having it entered in the Iowa State Fair, and she won, I think, a blue ribbon for it. So it's an interesting thing that she put together, and I think you'll enjoy it.
The Second Amendment states, "A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." This amendment gives the United States military the right to make weapons for the preparation of warfare. But what if the weapon the military is making is the atomic bomb? What if making these weapons infringes on the unalienable right to life that everyone has, as stated in the Declaration of Independence? Los Alamos, New Mexico is famous for the development of the atomic bomb under the direction of J. Robert Oppenheimer. A lesser-known influential presence at Los Alamos was Edward Grothus. After working at Los Alamos for 20 years as a machinist, Edward became an activist against the atomic bomb and war. Edward Grothus's life embodies how American citizens can exercise their Second Amendment right to bear arms, but also have a responsibility to protect all life. Through his time working at Los Alamos and as an activist against nuclear warfare, his life has become a testament to a radical method of defending life in the face of war. In the defense of life, what if one bomb is too many? Born on June 28, 1923 in Clinton, Iowa, Edward Grothus was the son of Theodore and Regina Grothus and the oldest of 8 children. Edward's father owned a machine shop, and Edward apprenticed under his father throughout high school. After high school, on the brink of World War II, Edward was rejected from military service for medical reasons. He then began working at the Rock Island Arsenal, a munitions plant on an island across the river from Davenport. After World War II, he continued his education for 2 years at the University of Iowa before joining the Merchant Marine. 2 years later, he arrived back in Iowa in January of 1949 and resumed working at the Rock Island Arsenal. A coworker told him that Los Alamos was looking for machinists. Edward applied for the job of second-class machinist in February of 1949. He was hired on June 6th. As a machinist in 1949, he soon began working at the lab's R site, where he was a key link in the process for making better, lighter and more delicate atomic bombs. These weapons were said to be 30 times smaller and 30 times stronger than the original atomic bomb. 2 years later, Edward opened the Black Hole, which was a retail store for Los Alamos' discarded science equipment, including light reflectors, decorated bomb casings, and a variety of laboratory equipment and parts. Over the following years, Edward began to question the ethics of working at Los Alamos. He also found the killing and the destruction in Vietnam extremely objectionable. He consequently wrote editorials to the Eye of Stone newspaper speaking out against the Vietnam War. In 1969, Edward stopped working at Los Alamos National Laboratory because he was nervous about being laid off and did not agree with America's role in the Vietnam War. Meanwhile, he continued his work at the Black Hole as a peace activist.
He took us through his work. Somebody said if he wanted something made, he could make it. He was very talented.
Did he always have, even though you didn't see him a lot growing up, when you did go visit him, did he always have a strong belief in what he thought was right? Like always very set in what he thought?
Yeah, he did. He eventually, he worked for the government, but then the Vietnam War came and he changed 180 with the bomb. One bomb is too many.
Edward's new mission involved protesting nuclear weapons. He peacefully protested the use of bombs and America's involvement in the Vietnam War by sending telegrams to the White House to President Richard Nixon, President Gerald Ford, and former Secretary of the Treasury, Mr. Henry H. Fowler. Other forms of activism he engaged in include protesting in Los Alamos National Laboratory's parking lot with signs that read, "One bomb is too many." He also sent canned beans with the label Organic Plutonium to the White House. For this, he was investigated by the Secret Service to decide if he was a radical, jokester, or threat. Also, at the annual parade for the Fiesta de Santa Fe, Edward and other activists would ride in a parade float with the slogan, "Billions for bombs, peanuts for people," using cartoons of characters from the Peanuts comic accompanied by Ed's panel truck adorned with banners and a fake bomb on top, in an attempt to alert more notice to the many injustices of the bomb manufacturing being done at Los Alamos. In his lifetime, Edward inspired many others to promote peace over war, including Suzuko Terada. Suzuko's daughter was killed in the atomic bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima. After meeting Edward, she sent him this letter. It states, "When I spoke about my daughter, I used to shed tears, but I decided to live for the rest of my life as a witness to the war in order that no one should become a victim of war again. I hope that we go on with the movement for peace together." Since his death on February 12, 2009, Edward's legacy is continued and preserved by his daughter, Barbara Grothus.
There are international anti-nuclear organizations that recognized his contribution and his, I guess you would say, to some extent, courage, people who stand up. That standing up is the first courageous moment, and once you've stood up, you don't lose that courage.
Edward Grothus's life is a testament that while we all have the right to act within our amendments, such as the right to bear arms and make war weapons, we have the responsibility to choose to act in ways that protect the rights of others.
Okay, well, that's that's our films for this evening. And I think some really interesting stuff. I enjoy those a lot. From this point, I'm going to ask Barbara and Mike to come up, and I'm going to sit up front. And hopefully we have two mics working, but we'd like to just open up for some Q&A. Mike's wife Heidi has agreed to shepherd around the microphone for people who want to ask questions. Okay, so Alan Sains is going to take care of that. So I'm pretty much the junior member again to answer any questions you might have about the Black Hole Museum Initiative, and I will definitely be deferring to Mike and Barbara in terms of the questions about a lot of the history of their family and such.
Yeah, I wanted to hear more about the church and just maybe what went on there as a potential spiritual group, or if it was another kind of political meeting place, or just what the background is on the church.
So the church was a Lutheran church, and at one point after my parents had purchased the grocery store, which had the parking lot in front of it, the church also became available. And so they ended up with both properties. And it was no longer a church at the time, but my father had a vision to create a peace institute. So he called it the Omega Peace Institute, or OPI. And his vision was that scientists, engineers, technologists would come there, and using the cast-off materials from the laboratory, they would use those materials for the good of mankind and recycle them in a way that would benefit mankind rather than through the nuclear business that was going on at the lab. So unfortunately, of course, that takes a lot of money and resources. He had certainly material resources, but the money, I think, was lacking. You know, people can't work for free, and that it never came to fruition, so it became a storage repository for business.
But I do want to say that he did have an artistic sensibility, which I think you can see from his sense of humor and also the way he conceptualized things. And he did use the church as an avatar of his religious upbringing in the Catholic Church and his idea of having a critical mass and, you know, advancing from a Monsignor to a cardinal, which he died as a cardinal, of course, and thought that, you know, he should have write-in votes to be the Pope, but he didn't get any. Anyway, he did respect the idea of the church, and he did really grow up in the Catholic Church, and you know, he fell away from it when the Catholic Church refused to take a stand on the Vietnam War. He became kind of embittered and with the church, but he never lost his spiritual grounding, I think, in the beliefs of that upbringing, I guess is what I want to say. So you saw in Ellen's film him doing his thing, which there was a later, our brother Tom, I think, was the one who sort of got Dad, had some kind of a record of him writing when he saw Father Guido Sarducci on Johnny Carson. And I think that was his springboard for how, I don't know if you know about Laszlo Toth and the whole Guido Sarducci thing, but he made a lot of fun of, he used the spiritual idea as a way to make fun of the government and other of those kind of things. And my father thought that was brilliant and adopted some of that aspect through his religious personifications that he created subsequently.
I'm just wondering, I have a vague recollection of Ed posting his edict annually at the cathedral in Santa Fe. And could you speak more about what he had to say on those edicts and what that was about?
Yeah, that was another one of his areas. And again, it goes back to what Barb was just saying about his religious beliefs. But it was a sexual reformation proclamation that he ceremoniously nailed to the church. He didn't really nail it to the church, right? But he ended up, it was many different things, talking about all sorts of things, birth control and parental rights and all sorts of things. And at one point he sent a copy of it to Playboy magazine, and they published most of it, but they omitted a couple of the things. And you know, we've got copies of what he had posted here, but it was again one of those things where he was trying to use some humor and get people to stop and think about things, right? So it was just another one of his activities. Yeah, yes, yeah. Sure, yes, yeah. I mean, it was another area where, again, with the religious piece that he leaned into.
So does the family still have the big flower that was created, or was it sold, and will it be a part of the museum?
Well, the flower was donated to the Art in Public Places program here in Los Alamos, and they chose to put it at the, what do you call that place? Well, no, the Echo Station. I don't know if they ever put it up there, honestly, but we did gift it to the county, and I don't know what they ever did with it, but yeah.
As a side note, this painting that was done on my father's 85th birthday, and he's sitting in front of the sunflower at that time. At the 85th birthday, some people came up from Santa Fe and talked about a show that was going on at the Lensic Theater that was, again, tie into the black hole and a lot of things. And so for the 85th birthday, we went down to see Mike Daisy, his show, and it was quite powerful. My father was rather hard of hearing, and one of the things that Mike Daisy said, and you heard it in the video, when people would come into the black hole, welcome to the black hole. And because he was hard of hearing, he would say it quite loudly. And my father was in the audience, and when Mike Daisy said it quite loudly in the Lensic Theater, that was about the only thing he really heard. So all the way driving home from Santa Fe in the car, I was, yelling at my dad, telling him the rest of the story that Mike Daisy shared. But it was another fun event, and it happened to be on his 85th birthday.
I just really want to say, first of all, we have voluminous articles from magazines from all over the world that wrote about my father here in Los Alamos. I mean, because he was the only voice against the nuclear business, as he called it. Almost everybody who came here to write an article, whether they were from the Washington Post or CNN or Wired or whatever, would come and visit him. But I just really have to give a shout out to the artists who made these films, and they're friends now. We didn't know them. Yanni came when we were doing the sale, and she just started setting things up and taking pictures of all the people and their stuff, what they gathered, and let's see what you got. And these people created a vision of Los Alamos, my father. I am deeply grateful for their work.
these films, especially today, what we are living through right now with the loss of the First Amendment, we're seeing it happening right now. My father would be furious and crazed over this whole kind of thing, and I think the vision that these people put forward, Ellen in 2002 and Yanni in 2013, I mean, those messages are still really powerful, and that is the power of art. And that is what those people have contributed to this. And I just really so moved seeing them again. I've seen these films several times, and I'm so grateful to them for their work.
So I would like to thank Kevin and the Grothus family for sharing all of this with us this evening. You answered some of my questions, Barbara, and but I would love to know what you think your dad might be thinking about all this hoopla and everybody getting back to promoting Black Hole Museum, that he obviously had wanted a museum for a long, long time.
So I think it's a great idea, right? I mean, I'm all in on this in terms of the idea. The obelisks were mentioned as something that could potentially be there as well. There are many artifacts still. There's actually 4 shipping containers. You heard Frank talk about new in the box. They're new in the box. The obelisks are new in the box, right? Ready for somebody to open and have a place for them. And so I think the museum is a great idea. The shipping containers are there. They can be reutilized for this type of a purpose. And I think if the community support is there behind it, that this is certainly something the family is well behind and very interested in seeing come to fruition. His vision, I mean, that 13-story tall tower that he had drawn up, right? That was his vision of a museum, right? And at the Black Hole, there were 2 3-room office trailers that were on site that were full of all of the museum artifacts. We ended up donating that material to Meow Wolf in Santa Fe. Again, tying back into the artists, the impact they've had, the things that they do with recycling and reusing the materials. And so, you know, Meow Wolf is now not just in Santa Fe. There's many locations across the country, and some of those materials, I'm sure, are being reprocessed and reused there. And he would be thrilled with that. I mean, he was thrilled when we would go down to Santa Fe, to Site Santa Fe, and to some of the other events that would go on, to see the creative reuse of the materials. It was always something that he had a strong affinity for, and very supportive of the arts and the things that people were doing with them.
You know, and Erica, I don't know if any of you had the occasion to see her show that was at Site Santa Fe earlier this year. I think it was up during January and February. She's completely amazing, and if you, I mean, you should look her up, Erica Wanamaker, online, and look up her exhibition that she did at Site Santa Fe. It was spectacular, again, you know, the people who have the ethos of recycling and reusing are often great visionaries. And I think, you know, when we look at AI and things like that that are happening now, it's a little concerning because we're not really knowing if things are real or not. And I think we have to be truthful as human beings, and especially as artists, we have to be true to ourselves. And I really appreciate you all for coming here tonight too, and happy if there are any more questions.
I just wanted to encourage people to participate in the oral history thing. It's really easy. You just call the number and say what you want to say. And I know you all have stories like I do, like when somebody came to the black coal in handcuffs. You could ask me more about that later. Or when Barb and Mike were cleaning out the black hole, and I get up one morning from, a night's sleep, and there's like this little dish by the sink in the bathroom, and it's got a ring in it. I'm like, what is this? He said, oh, somebody found Dad's class ring at the black hole, and it's very radioactive, so I have it soaking in borax. Like, could you put it anywhere besides the bedroom? That would be great. But I'm sure you have stories too, how we put corn in the back of his pickup to attract the crows. He was a character, so he touched you all, and those oral stories will be what capture the breadth of his impact.
I just want to say, I first started going to Prada Marfa maybe about, 8 or 9 years ago, and that little space is outside of Valentine, Texas, and it really is a great, it's just shoes and handbags from Prada in a display case, basically, and you don't go in. And so I really began thinking that would be a great way, because you don't need personnel. You don't have to have a lot of resources to have a space like that, and people can just come and see it. And at the time when we first started talking about this, QR code was not what it is today. And I thought we could have QR code on the glass or on the containers, and they could be everybody's little piece of the picture, and you could just click around and get a story like we do in museums now. And so the use of QR code really is fantastic. And now that everybody's sort of used to using it for their menu at the restaurant or to order this or that, it's really a great tool, and it's so easy. So I hope that people will, as Heidi said, contribute stories and flesh out the whole story of Los Alamos through the lens that we can provide here. And it doesn't, I don't know, the black hole, like you saw in the films, is a lot of things to a lot of people. And I just really am happy. I also want to thank James Rutherford, who is the head of the Friends of Tony Price in Santa Fe, and we have had a long time collaboration. Tony was a friend of my dad, and they had a famous friendship, and his work is spectacular, and James is now in charge of trying to figure out how to collect all that stuff and make it available. If you haven't seen Tony Price, the Atomic Artist, you can go online also and see his amazing work. It's in museums around. Santa Fe has some, Albuquerque has some, but the biggest collection is still the responsibility of James Rutherford now, and I'm so glad that you're here.
Hi.
I just want to
So-
say that I think that. Hi, I think this is a great idea because history will not be erased. And this is part of history that maybe Los Alamos doesn't like, but they have to face it. Thank you.
Thank you for your support. So since I got the invite, I've been thinking a lot about this, and it's when I think about Prada Marfa, which I've been to also, it is not a museum. It is in the tradition of earthworks and site-specific earthworks. It fits solidly in the art historical context of postmodernism, in which one of the tenets of that is that we live in an era now, we're in the postmodernist era, where the there is no signified for the signifier. We live in an era where image is the thing itself. It's not what the image is of, essentially. And also another tenet of postmodernism is a tendency towards irony, which that's to say, that's by way of saying that Ed fits solidly as an artist in the postmodernist tradition. And to me, the stuff is only important for the story that it represents. And the black hole, it does not exist anymore. But the idea of what the black hole represents exists. And I think it's much bigger, actually, than a sideshow in Los Alamos in a container, although I think your design for that is a great idea. I personally see this in the middle of some nature with nothing around it, where people come upon it and they bring to it their own story and their own reaction, and they have the opportunity to understand what the artist intended, what the artist Ed intended, but that the meaning behind it can go on and have multiple interpretations into perpetuity. And as far as being an attraction, being another historical attraction in Los Alamos is a limited audience. If this is cited somewhere like Prada Marfa is, where people, it becomes on the list in the culturati around the world, when you go to New Mexico, you need to visit this sculpture, basically. The thing is not it's a sculpture in itself, is what I see. It's an image that's created of the black hole in some remote area. I see it in some of that vacant land that you lease from the Forest Service on the way to Jemez, where you have to drive there as a destination. You're appealing to a much broader audience than people who are interested in the history of Los Alamos, and you have a chance to have multiple interpretations that we may not have even thought of. That Ed's vision as an artist is the starting point for that, and that's just kind of my take on it.
One black hole is too few.
I was going to ask a question, or make a comment or suggestion possibly. The church is such an important piece of the story. Is there any way to include not the full church, but some sort of model in this idea that you're working on, in addition to the container or whatever the standalone would be? I don't know if that works or not, but that came to mind while we were talking about the value of the church.
Yeah, I respond to that one a little bit. This initiative is at its beginning, so anything is game. In terms of what actually ends up, like our group doesn't have any strong opinion about exactly what it should be. What we want to do is get people who do that for professionally to and try to pick the right people to figure out how to tell the story and what the story should be. So
yeah, that's a really neat thing. One kind of side note on that is growing up with 4 siblings, right? In 1968, my parents purchased Encyclopedia Britannica, right? Yeah, everybody in here probably knows encyclopedias, right? But the interesting thing is, when you went to Los Alamos in the Encyclopedia Britannica, a picture of that church was part of the story about Los Alamos. It was in the Encyclopedia Britannica. And yeah, again, tying back to the church, I think that's a really great idea, and just an interesting side note there.
I just want to say one more thing about the Art in Public Places program of the state. Since its inception, it was created by an act of the legislature, and the the two co-sponsors was Senator Steve Stoddard of Los Alamos, a Republican, and Tom Rutherford of Albuquerque, a Democrat. And it was an example of a bipartisan effort that's one of the most successful efforts in the whole state. There are public art pieces in every county in the country that are sources of pride of those counties now. And something like to treat this as an art object in itself, as a site-specific art object, perhaps owned by the state or partnered with by the state, I think has legs and has potential for funding in that program. The University of New Mexico is the largest recipient of art in public places because they have the largest budget. They have a whole warehouse full of art that is they aren't even able to hang, that they house their art collection in. So I'm just a proponent of approaching this as an art project, because at his core, I think your father was an artist.
You know, when we were getting ready to sell the house, and you know, the house was the first adobe post on Asazi in Los Alamos. And my father was just, when he went to Taos and saw the Taos Inn, he was inspired. And some of the things that, you know, came up in our sort of going through the house, I mean, he did design all kinds of things, and he spent a lot of time thinking about how he wanted to make something. And it was part of his sort of our family OCD and the, you know, the machinist aspect of his personality. And I think the corbels, if you go by the house now, it's no longer white, but it's still at the corner of Bondonata and San Ildefonso. And I remember him saying he spent 2 weeks thinking about the shape of the corbels for the front of the house. And so things like that, I mean, he did practice art and design, and that was really his masterpiece in that regard. And you know, nobody wanted to live here in the house, and I'll never live in a nicer house than I grew up in there, even though we were building it as we lived in it too. I mean, we were finishing it as we lived in it.
There was a question earlier about the birth of the black hole and you know, the grocery store piece of it, right? But the black hole was really an outgrowth of the Los Alamos Sales Company, and the Los Alamos Sales Company is what my father founded originally as this surplus reselling business. And I'll talk about the first purchase of it was 500 pair of size 32 khaki shorts, because the military was no longer providing the protection in Los Alamos, and they outsourced it. So they had 500 pair of size 32 khaki shorts. And the first repository of where this material ended up was my father went over and dug a basement underneath Ted Dunn's home over here in Los Alamos, so they could store 500 pair of size 32 khaki shorts, which were ultimately sold to the Boys Reform School in Canyon City, Colorado. So that was the real birth of the Los Alamos Sales Company and what turned into the black hole.
Yeah, that was in 1953. So we all grew up. My father bought a mimeograph machine, and one of the things that I don't know if he mentioned that mom and dad each, when they met, had a car, a typewriter, they played bridge, they were Catholic. I think there was some other material aspect of it that I'm forgetting. But anyway, the typewriter was a big part of their original relationship, that they could both type. And he would type up the catalog for all the things he had acquired to sell during our childhood. And they played cards, and so we would set up the card tables in the living room, and the kids in the neighborhood and all of us would go around and assemble his mimeographed catalog and then staple it together, and he would send it out to universities. And one of the places that he had was waiting for money at a certain point in time, I think during the Carter years, was a university in Iran. And he was waiting to get the money, and there was quite a bit of correspondence with this whole process because there was an embargo on the money going in and out of Iran at a certain point in time. I think, like I say, I think it was during the Carter presidency. Maybe I don't know if it was Carter or, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, so it might have been during the hostage crisis. So when was that? I don't know. Reagan, maybe? No, Reagan ended it. So was Carter. Yeah. Anyway, so there was correspondence about that. So this sort of back history of the Los Alamos Sales Company also has a lot of facets.
I just wondered if you could give us an update on Ed's obelisk. It seems to me that they're both a representation of his life as an artist and as an activist. And it feels like they need to be part of this museum, but maybe you found another place for them, or where do they exist? What's the status on that?
They're new in the box down on DP Road. Yeah, they're stored. When we were cleaning up the Black Hole property, the county was very demanding, I'll say, and told me that there was no place in Los Alamos that you could keep a storage container. And we were selling the property and we moved them regardless, but we were able to move them down to the Los Alamos landscaping property on DP Road, and that's where they still are. Hopefully in their same pristine condition, waiting for an opportunity to install them somewhere.
And perhaps with the museum in mind, they might be part of that?
That would be so wonderful. You know, one of the big factors of that particular element, those elements, is the security and safety, and how do you sort of protect them if they're in an isolated spot? Are they going to be targets of whatever? And most likely the answer to that would be yes, particularly in our current condition. So I don't know what we're going to do about that, but that has been one of the issues that we've thought about a lot, is how do you try to create a visibility for them and also maintain them as a thing.
So Kevin, I was going to ask you, with this audience and everybody that they know in the community and around other places, what are the steps for getting involved with the effort? Do you have anything to comment about that?
Yeah, thanks for that question. What we'd really like, if to the extent that you're interested in this idea and project, we'd really ask you stay tuned in. And the best way to do that is to join our mail list. And the mail list is on our website, which is at blackholemuseum.blogspot.com, and there's a very obvious button to join the email list there. So that's a number one. By the same token, what Heidi was saying, contributing oral histories, that's a sign that you care, and that anybody cares about really retaining this story. So the inputs we gather there, if nobody cares and we don't really get any inputs, nobody really wants to stay informed, it'll be really hard for us to be able to say to somebody, this is something people want and we really need to do it. The other thing, like I said, we're really forming our steering committee, I would say, or working group is made up of myself, and 3 other volunteers for our organization. One is Lisa Stringfield. Some of you may know her. Another is Gordon McDonough. Gordon was a educator at the Bradbury Science Museum, so he has some museum chops in that, but he's retired now. from all of that. And then Liz Martineau, who is also a retired educator from the Bradbury Museum, and she's also runs the Los Alamos Community Foundation. So it's just the four of us. So if people want to get involved or you got a passion for this, we'd sure love to hear from you and would welcome people to figuring out how we can get more people involved.
So I know many of you here, but I'm Maura O'Neill and I have the Los Alamos Reporter news page. And I am a big supporter of this project. And so I would welcome letters to the editor, stories that people want to write, anything you want to send me. I loved what you had to say about this evening, and I wish I had recorded you, but I would love to certainly have a column from you on that if you were interested. A big supporter of Places and Spaces, big supporter of Kevin and other projects that he has going here, and also the SALA Community Centers, so Event Center. So send me material. If you get on, it's losalamosreporter.com, and then I also have my Facebook page. I've had up to 2 million views a year, so it's not like a small outfit, and it's a one-person operation. So if what you send doesn't appear the same day, don't give up on me. So yeah, I'd like to support this any way I can.
That'd be great. Letters to the editor. Passing the word on just by word of mouth to other people is a big thing. If you know other people you think may have interesting stories to share, things to say, passing one of those bookmarks or the information on it along to them would be huge for us, and would greatly appreciate that.
I was going to say your column or article about this event brought us here, so thank you. And Dee Dee sent it to us, so.
And I just also want to say we're not interested in censoring people's things. I mean, the only thing I can think about in that regard would be that the content shouldn't be vulgar or, pornographic or whatever. I mean, it's a community story, and everybody's voice is equally important, and especially now, I think we really need to find ways to tell our stories without killing each other.
What is the reception of Los Alamos County in collaborating with you?
We've had some discussion with the airport manager who's quite interested in this. If you know Los Alamos at all and you know that space, there's beautiful land there, fantastic backdrops, but it's really a wasteland. It's not really used too much. Certainly it's of great value to the pilots and the people who come in and out, but there's a big area there, and if you go out there, take a drive out there, you'll see a shipping container under a beautiful shade tree with a mountain backdrop. That's one that strikes me. But to approach the county, I don't know. We have to be way farther down the line before I believe it'll be any useful discussion. If you know me, I've been involved in a lot of discussions with the county, and I don't think they're the place to start. They're the people to join in someday if we can really pull some things together and get some momentum. So we're going to be around. Please take advantage, and we'll hang around as long as anybody wants to talk about stuff. I do want to point out, out in the lobby, take a look at there's a creative reuse art exhibition. It'll be there through Saturday. It's really pieces of art made from trash, junk, whatever you want to call it, in 2 workshops over the past couple of weekends by your fellow community members of all ages. We had a great fun with workshops with that, and it's on display. I have to recognize a young lady, Kez Lucchini. Kez had a passion for this. We didn't really even think about that idea. She had a passion and said, "Can I do this?" And that's something else we believe that we need more in this community is young people and turning them loose to do things they want to do. And so that what you would see if you just take a stroll through there is the result of her passion and efforts. And so also want to thank her.
Well, speaking of thanks, I think that on behalf of the whole family, we want to thank Kevin for pursuing this and taking it on and championing it. And I have a lot of confidence in his ability to bring it forward. And so I wanted to thank him.
Thank you. So thank you all for coming, and please, if you, as you choose, let's chat some more.
One last comment, Kevin.
Sure.
Round of applause for SALA for having us here.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, and by the way, this will be another way that you can share this. You never know till you hit the button that it all turns out, but we've recorded tonight. So this will become part of our oral history database, all of your questions and inputs, but also you'll get, if you join our mail list or watch our website, you'll get a link to be able to share if you want to say, hey, you ought to look at some of those films or some of that discussion. So thanks again for coming.
Thank you all, really, truly. Great job. Thank you so much. Yeah.